The private sector is also a key project implementer and will in the future continue to act as a central driving force of renewable energy deployment. Risk analysis. Risk mitigation is especially important in renewable energy projects because of their high fixed costs. The financing costs of renewable energy can be reduced to attract capital at scale. Moreover, project risk can take multiple forms, which include political risk, regulatory risk, and so on. The first risk mitigation instrument I'll be talking about is the guarantee. Guarantee instruments can improve the structure and quality of renewable energy investment by addressing the political, policy, and currency risk. Guarantees are usually issued by public entities such as governments. They offer an efficient way of leveraging private investment with limited public capital. Moreover, results show that political risk insurance is the most common form of support, making up to 56% of the value of all insurances. Second, grants. Grants can incentivize renewable energy development in potentially high-risk activities. As an example, the Geothermal Development Facility in Latin America is a facility that offers convertible grants for the entire value chain of exploratory drilling. If the exploration drill is successfully discovers a resourceful or drillable well, the grant is converted to a loan and the project must repay 80% of the funds given. However, if the drill is unsuccessful, there is no financial commitment to repay the funds and the grants are not converted to a loan. This instrument specifically targets the high-risk nature of the exploration drill, providing a safety net for projects to buffer against unsuccessful drills. At the same time, it allows funding facilities to recover public funds with successful drilling outcomes. Third, insurances. The Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, just a second. Okay, sorry. Okay, is the largest, so let's go over again. The insurances. The Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency is the largest provider of political risk insurance in the world. The MIGA, political risk insurance, guarantees equity in addition to that and does not require a counter guarantee from the host government. MIGA covers risks from war and terrorism, which may include losses from revolution or insurrection. It also covers breach of contract agreements and expropriation. In this perspective, the use of political risk insurances plays an important role in attracting private capital. Moreover, we can go back to the drilling example, and we could also have an exploration insurance via public-private partnership, which would allow a private insurer and the government to share the burden of potential failure in an exploration drill. This insurance would cover the cost of drilling, exploration, and simulation. However, this public-private partnership is complex to design, implement, and monitor, leading to a probable increase of overall upfront costs. Thus, all risk mitigation factors should be taken into consideration when reviewing the feasibility of a given renewable energy project. Now, the finance model. Project finance is a recent technique applied in renewable energy projects to transfer the risk from the public to the private sector when there are high levels of public debt. However, selecting the right renewable energy project to invest is an issue which involves many factors, policies, and situations. In this perspective, renewable energy financial decision can be considered a multi-criteria decision-making problem with numerous risks, criteria, alternatives, which increases the complexity of the decision-making process. The multi-criteria approach converts all information into quantitative data to make a final decision. A set of 4 dimensions is proposed in order to consider the technological, political, legal, socio-environmental, and financial economic perspective of the problem. Each dimension is then divided into sub-criteria such as operation, maintenance cost, net present value, etc. Each criterion is on its turn given a weight, and with the VCOR methodology, we are able to rank each alternative. So, what is the VCOR methodology? It was developed for multi-criteria optimization of complex systems. It determines the compromise ranking list and the compromise solution obtained with the initial given weights. The equation shown in front of you is that of an LP metric, where for p equals 1, we get the SI values, and for p equals infinity, we get the RI values. So the solution obtained by minimizing SI is with a maximum group utility, while the solution obtained by minimizing RI is with a minimum individual regret of the opponent. Here you can also see the equations of SI and RI, where WJ is the weight given to the criterion, Fj dot is the maximal Fij, and Fj minus is the minimal Fij, where Fij is also the rating of alternative A of I, for example, with respect to the criterion C of J. The compromise ranking algorithm of the VCOR method has the following steps. So first, we have to determine the best and worst Fj values for all criterion functions. Then we compute the values of SI and RI for each criterion. Afterwards, we introduce the index Q with the equation shown in front of you, where S dot is the minimal SI and S minus is the maximal SI, R dot is the minimal RI, R minus is the maximum RI, and V is the weight of the strategy of the majority of criteria or the maximum group utility. Now, after having the S, R, and Q results, we can rank the alternatives by sorting these values in decreasing order. The results are 3 ranking lists. Finally, we can propose as a compromise solution the alternative, for example, A prime, which is ranked the best by having the lowest index Q. This compromise is acceptable if 2 conditions are satisfied. First, acceptable advantage, where you can see the equation where the index of the A second, which is the second best alternative by Q listing, so where the index of this of Q second minus the index of Q prime should be bigger than DQ, where DQ is 1 over the number of alternatives minus 1. The second condition is the acceptable stability in decision making, where alternative A prime must also be the best ranked by S or and R. This compromise solution is stable within a decision making process, which could be voting by majority rule when V is bigger than 0.5, or by consensus if V is equal to 0.5, or with veto if V is smaller than 0.5. By doing concept from the observation that production costs of a given technology ultimately decreases with cumulated experience of producing it. In our case, this experience would be the cumulated production of technologies. Learning by doing would lead us to develop new acceptable renewable energy financing and risk management products. Thus, instead of financing individual projects, this approach would let us design and scale up the size of the instruments related to the financing and risk mitigation of renewable energy projects. The implementation of the learning by doing concept would lead to a decrease in the unit cost of equipment, which will translate to a reduction of renewable energy cost and price. In addition, learning improves the international competitiveness of renewable energy equipment and stimulates national and international demand for this technology. Now for the recommendations. First, mitigate risk to attract investment. So policymakers should comprehensively use existing risk mitigation instruments to address renewable energy risks and barriers to attract private investment. Furthermore, by promoting the importance of renewable energy investment to the issuers of risk mitigation instruments, we could provide support by fostering greater communication between the industry stakeholders and the organization issuing the existing risk mitigation instruments. Nonetheless, such initiatives require broad collaboration among investors, financial institutions, and national governments. Second, full investment maturity. A steady flow of economically viable and financially sound projects is essential if renewable investment is to be scaled up. In this perspective, we would want to improve the transparency and liquidity of renewable energy markets via the creation of virtual marketplaces to facilitate the interaction between project developers and investors. Moreover, we should support the project preparation via capacity building and dedicated grants offered by governments and financial institutions. Using these tools would facilitate new initiatives to help renewable energy projects progress from initiation to investment maturity. Third, breaking down the barriers. The lack of familiarity, limited knowledge, and skill among project proponents and local financial institutions all reinforce a lack of track record and reliable investment data, especially in emerging markets, which is the case with renewable energy. A key component of any effort to scale up investment in the renewable energy sector would be a policy commitment at the national level, since such policies have been proven to affect the investment risk and cost of capital. To conclude, the decision to invest money into renewable energy projects can be a difficult choice for investors. In fact, renewable energy faces the problem of volatility, which creates uncertainty and investment risks. With little to precisely quantify this volatility, investors tend to act conservatively. Thus, the strength of data is a force to be reckoned with. In fact, the creation of new technologies that are able to gather big loads of information is a big help to investors who are afraid of uncertainty. Moreover, the establishment of risk mitigation technologies such as grants, insurances, and guarantees acts as a trigger to attract new private investment by lowering the risk on the initial one. Finally, when we integrate the previously mentioned technologies with the use of the finance model and the learning by doing concept, we should be able to render renewable energy projects as attractive, if not more attractive, than any classical energy project. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, I want to ask you, did you attend or did you go over the videos on the economical chapter we have done together, chapter 8?
Not really, not yet.
In the model you proposed, can you tell me how they can take into account the time effect?
Okay, so it's in the criteria. We have in the criteria there's the net present value. We also have the this, like in the criteria, the 4 dimensions that we're talking about. So the first one, the financial economic, it should take into consideration the time. Like, just a second.
So do you have a certain parameter that is clearly seen in the equation? So if you go to
I don't think so.
Okay.
The Picor methodology is mainly for when we have a multi-criteria approach and when we have more alternatives with conflicting criteria.
Okay. In this study, do we account how can we see the balance? For example, here, if I want to see the balance between cost and incomes, how can I see it in this model? So it will assess my gains. This model will assess my gains with time or not?
It should be. It should.
Okay.
Like أنا you know what I
Yeah, I
understood
want
from
from
it.
you to understand these parameters. What is
Yeah.
S? What is R? What is Q?
Okay.
So I
Okay.
want to
Okay.
ask you how I am benefiting from the project. What do you tell me?
So Anna, first from what I've read, we start with the AHP. It's a hierarchical process. When we, for example, in the paper I read, they had like 10 criteria and 4 dimensions, which will make a 10 by 10 matrix with each weight of criteria given. You know, each criteria has a weight, and it has a weight over the other criteria. يعني. I don't know how to explain it. I'll add. So basically, after having an OW, this is the weight. So after it, you know, we make a matrix. Wait, can you repeat your question, Doctor?
Okay, Jad, I'm asking you, is this model able of telling you what will be your benefits after a certain period of time, or what is the purpose of this model?
Okay.
If it will not tell you if your project is profitable or not, what is the purpose of this financial
The
model?
assumption at first is that we want a benefit. So when we know that we want a benefit, we know the definition of fj star and fj minus. If we want a benefit, fj dot is the maximal fig and fj minus is the minimal fig. So the Vicar methodology let us rank, like if we have, for example, 5 alternatives, 5 different projects, and we don't know in which one we want to invest. So the Vicar methodology lets us rank these 5 projects by 3 ranking lists, either the S list or the R or the Q. So with the S, we get the maximum group utility. With R, we get the minimal individual regret. And with Q, we get, in general, the best option. Like it doesn't tell me how much I will get in return for each dollar I invested, but it will give me the best alternative given the criteria and the weights I have given them.
Okay. And this financial model is not only for renewable energy projects, it can be
Yeah,
applied
of
for
course,
any
it's
project.
for multi-criteria. It's whenever you have more many alternatives with conflicting criteria.
Okay. Now, in the paper you have worked on, have you seen in the literature some studies on risks analysis for your renewable energy projects?
Like there was an example, but they have given them like the weights and the calculations. They were like, you know, they invented them. If you know, like it wasn't an actual case study.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you for your time, Doctor.
Bye.